Hey guys, how you all doing? It's Varumzo here. I just wanted to make a kind of a continuation of my last video where I talked about how I was a little bit concerned about Soulcalibur 6. It seems that my concerns were unfortunately not completely unjustified, as in a recent interview with DualShockers, Soulcalibur 6's producer Motohiro Okubo, sorry if I mispronounced that, he discussed the Soulcalibur franchise. And basically, this is a direct quote from him from the interview about the Soulcalibur IP and why it's been 6 years since Soulcalibur 5. The first thing is that the IP itself of the Soulcalibur franchise had low expectations from the company. It was actually facing a crisis of maybe disappearing. It took time for me to convince the company. And when asked that Soulcalibur 6 could be the last game, if it doesn't do well enough, he said, yeah, that's right. This is basically clear confirmation that the Soulcalibur franchise in general is in kind of a bit of a crisis here. And because of this, apparently they've been kind of, the entire team working on the game is basically kind of working really hard and kind of doing whatever they want with it to try and basically make fans happy. They also briefly discussed like the fan service being much closer to like the older Soulcalibur games and like that, like really ramping it up because that's kind of what the fans wanted and stuff like that. And for those of you who don't know, Soulcalibur 5 did not sell very well, so that's why it's another reason why it's been so long. Why they kind of had lost faith in the Soulcalibur IP. And I couldn't help but think with this interview and kind of the revelations about the current state of the Soulcalibur franchise, I kind of personally thought about two other franchises and two other games that kind of were in similar situations as the Soulcalibur franchise and Soulcalibur 6. The first one is Dead Space 3, and for those of you who don't know, Dead Space 3 was kind of the last pretty crappy gasp of a IP that I really, really loved. And it was after Dead Space 2 was such a great game, it was really disappointing that Dead Space 3 was just kind of a piece of shit. And basically, it was fucked by EA into the ground because basically they expected Dead Space 3 to be this big, huge moneymaker, and it just wasn't. And Dead Space 3 came around, and they wanted to sell some ridiculous number like 3 million copies, which for a horror game that just wasn't going to happen. A horror game that isn't like Resident Evil. And as a result of it just obviously not meeting those demands, the franchise was ended, and more recently, the studio that made Dead Space unfortunately also closed, Studio Visceral, which was a huge loss for the game industry in general. And I really hope anyone from that studio goes on to do great things and maybe starts a Kickstarter campaign that I would immediately throw money at. The other franchise that came to mind, however, had a much happier ending, and that was Fire Emblem and Fire Emblem Awakening. Fire Emblem Awakening was actually basically the Hail Mary for the Fire Emblem franchise, where there hadn't been a Fire Emblem for a number of years, and the last couple hadn't performed well, so the team basically worked really hard and threw everything they could in the wall, any ideas they had, marrying children, the different classes, basically everything they could think of. And the result was one of my personal favorite games of all time, and was a huge, massive success. I remember seeing reports that they actually couldn't keep the game in stock because there was such a demand for it. And it ended up basically revitalizing the Fire Emblem franchise, and it's now basically bigger than ever, with multiple games coming out in the years to follow, including the main franchise. And you have like Fire Emblem Heroes, you have a mobile game, which if you like that or not, that's personal preference, and it completely revitalized everything about Fire Emblem. And now, I mean, we even have three different characters from Fire Emblem Awakening in the new Smash, which is pretty crazy. That game was that popular, and the characters were that popular that they actually took 3 different roster spots. But I would say at the moment, Soulcalibur 6 is looking a lot more like a Fire Emblem Awakening type game than Dead Space 3 type game. That it seems to be a much more return to form of kind of the beloved IP of Soulcalibur, with returning to the kind of the combat people loved, the characters people loved, and everything else that people loved, with some new stuff on top of it. Trying to also similar to kind of almost like Mortal Kombat 9 and like rebooting the franchise as well. Though I don't know much about the story. I just know they're kind of retelling the story. And I really hope that's the case. It is, unfortunately, it's still 2 months away, and basically anything can happen. It's also, unfortunately, I don't know why it's releasing in October. It seems like a unfortunate release date, as it's basically smack dab between Call of Duty, Battlefield 5, and Red Dead Redemption 2. And that's why I wonder if what people were wondering also was going to get delayed, as I kind of discussed in my last video, was because maybe they're going to move to a less crowded month, which would seem like a not terrible idea, especially if this is the last shot for the Soulcalibur franchise. The game's state has also not been helped with the recent controversy and outrage over Tira being a DLC character and being announced before the entire roster is even announced. You know, that's kind of goes to a bigger conversation about the fighting game genre in general being heavily monetized right now, with characters being sold off and stuff like that as DLC. And it's definitely not a good look. And it really sucks. A lot of people are, I think, rightfully mad. As I know Tira's, an older fan favorite for a lot of people. But just to wrap it up here, this is actually personally going to be my first Soulcalibur game with Soulcalibur 6. And I'm still really excited for the game. I'm so looking forward to it. I plan on making a whole bunch of videos of me playing it and having fun figuring stuff out for the first time. Already kind of got a couple of characters that I already really want to try. And yeah. But I hope the game does well. I wish it the best. And I really hope it doesn't pull any more of the kind of Tira stuff. I really hope we don't see DLC announcements till the game's actually out, and maybe even like a couple months after the game's out, just because it never looks good, But anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.